Welcome everybody to the Grease Pilot Show, where all we talk about is aviation business, aviation entrepreneurship, and of course, aviation startups. If that's something that sounds interesting to you, make sure you hit the like or subscribe button. Either or works for us. And in today's show, we're going to talk about how to start a flight school, and we've got our first guest on the Grease Pilot Show and a special guest, Anthony Fowler, owner of US Flight Co., a Midwest-based flight school. And today he's going to kind of, excuse me, he's going to kind of help us figure out what it takes to start a good flight school. And we're going to talk about what it takes and how to serve the student and things like how much money does it take, where do you want to start one, the challenges faced, what the day-to-day is like, and like I said, what it's like to serve the customer, because ultimately a successful flight school requires that you get in front of the customer and serve the customer. And so today we're going to talk about that. But before we go into that, I'd like to welcome Anthony to the show. Welcome to the show, Anthony.
Yeah, good morning, Michael. Thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
Yeah, it should be a good one. So let's just jump into your history. So give a quick plug. I know I go on about my history, but Anthony's not a big talker, which is great. But he's going to share his knowledge with us. He's pretty humble, though. But why don't you give us a quick plug on your history? How you got to where you're at today? Sorry.
Yeah, so I always wanted to be a pilot, from as long as I can remember. But it was the money thing was a big struggle for me. So I actually ended up going to college first for A&P school, got my mechanical license, did the avionics program as well while I was in college. And my first job was out at Duncan Aviation doing avionics and corporate jets. Did that for a little while, worked at a couple small shops, where I ended up actually working with Michael at Winterset Aviation for 2 or 3 years. Then the opportunity came up to where I was able to actually purchase the business from Michael. He's moving on to bigger things, and everything just kind of lined up for me. So it was a great opportunity.
Thanks for that.
Yeah. It was a really good opportunity. I was always kind of entrepreneur spirited. So when the opportunity came up, it was just a no-brainer for me to take advantage of it. Ran that for...
When you say entrepreneur spirit, because some people may be wondering should they start a business? What kind of person should start a business?
Sure.
And when you say you had an entrepreneur spirit, tell us before you even owned a business the type of things that kind of gave you the sign that you were an entrepreneur kind of guy.
So I always had a side hustle, all the way back, even to when I was in high school. I had a eBay business, kind of selling some stuff on eBay. I was always trying to...
You had the juicer thing, I know.
Sold everything from juicers, websites.
The hustle's right.
Yeah, it was always hustling, doing something to try and make more, get away from the job,
Right.
Ultimately was the drive. So when that opportunity came up, it was nothing. It couldn't have had a better opportunity fall into my lap. So
sure.
So jumped on that, and kind of backing up a little bit, on the flying side. Started flying while I was in college at A&P school, but I finished up out in Nebraska, and it was a journey. When I went through several instructors trying to find the right instructor, the guy that I knew I wanted to learn from. And I found the guy who'd been flying for a long time, had a lot of experience, knew that's who I wanted to learn how to fly from. So I started taking lessons with him, and I was 35 hours in or so, and I was about to just give up and quit because I didn't have a lot of money at the time. And we're just kind of repeating a lot of lessons. We were not really... At
35 hours, you weren't where you're supposed to be.
Yeah, I wasn't near being complete. I felt like I didn't see the end. I didn't know, was I even going to get to the end? Was I going to get my license, or was I just throwing money out the door? And it was because he didn't have any structure. So it was every time
Hold on. Let's finish up your history.
Sure.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Yeah, no, you're good. Sorry, we'll go back to that.
He was talking about we're gonna hit that up later on the podcast about the journey of him getting his pilot's license, because honestly, serving the customer is a big deal. So let's just So finish up your history.
Yeah, so Winterset Aviation. So after I purchased that, I ran that for I think it was 3 years before Michael called me up and said, "Let's start a flight school."
Yeah.
That's literally how it came up. I was sitting at lunch one day and he called me and
great.
said, "We need to start a flight school." And I was a little hesitant, but he's like, if we do it in the right location with enough demand, we can make it work.
And the whole thing with that was, I went out to Colorado and worked for a flight school. I had opened a flight school before I talked to Anthony into opening one with me, and it was kind of a failure. There's a lot of reasons why, which we don't have time to talk about. I could talk forever about it, but long story short, the big reason was it wasn't in a metro. That's the big reason I think for me, and it was in rural Iowa. So I had started a flight school, then went out to Colorado. Anthony purchased the shop from me, the aircraft maintenance shop. Me and my family moved out to Colorado. I worked for a flight school out there that was successful, a bigger flight school, 30 planes, and just kind of like a 91 school. It looked like something that we could do, and the owner looked happy. He was making money, which is, at a certain point, I think flight schools don't make money because the margins are small, they're tight.
Yeah.
But like he made it over that fulcrum to where now he's really making cash, and he was savvy. He ran the shop, so he did the maintenance on the planes. But long story short, I talked him into it because I went out there and saw one working, and I saw the insides of a flight school. Okay.
Yeah. So we launched the flight school. We started with one plane, and started that in, I think it was July 2019. And the first month was rough, but it was flying. We got students pretty much right away, but it was
almost like a lot of discovery flights and like one-time things at the beginning, right?
Yep,
just figuring it all
month,
out,
a
like
lot of
literally we
flights.
probably had 20 or 30 hours in like one-time flights.
Right, it was. That's what it was. That first month was just almost all discovery flights, and then but it just kept growing, and it started getting momentum. Month 2, month 3, we were cash flow positive. And then from there, we added planes, added locations, built it out throughout the Midwest, and it just kind of took off, really.
Yeah. So, okay, your history's wrapped up. Started as a mechanic, went to flight school while you were getting your mechanic's license, right?
Yep.
Kind of your journey to become a pilot we're going to talk about here shortly. Obviously, I know you worked for me. I hired you on as a mechanic. And Anthony was my best employee. We had a small shop, so it's not like we had a lot of employees, but he ended up buying the company from me. So then that's kind of how we became, we got to know each other before we started a flight school, and that helps if you're partnering.
Right, absolutely.
We knew each other because we worked alongside each other in the shop, and that's why I felt comfortable starting a partnership with him, and vice versa.
Yep.
So then running the shop, started the flight school. Okay, now today, what's today? How's it? What are you thinking about for today? What's the school like?
Yeah.
What are you doing today?
Yeah, so the school's good. We're still flying a lot. We're hiring new instructors, getting different planes in, more planes. So it's going good. We're growing. We're still doing it. But my focus is bigger than just running a local school. I really want to help pilots kind of nationwide because there's a lot of issues in the flight training industry, and I'm trying to help solve those issues.
Gotcha. Okay, so yes, that's going to segue into our next topic. I'm going to look at the clipboard here to make sure we're on topic here for you guys. We went over his history, key points of starting a flight school. In here, there's going to be where we talk about serving the customer, and we'll hear Anthony's story of becoming a pilot and how he serves his customers in the flight school world. But real quick, let's talk about, let's just hit up the capital needed to start a flight school. So I got that on the list. So like when we started it, I think it was, we did one plane. That plane was $40,000.
Yep.
I know we bought it for 40. It was a 172.
Yeah.
And I think we got a loan that was like 15% down or something.
Yeah.
We each put like 5 or 10 in, didn't we, at the beginning?
We each put, I think we each put 10. We each put 10 in, and out of that 20,000
Well, I know we
total. Really, most of it didn't go to the plane. I think we got the plane with very little down. But the insurance, we had to pay for the first year insurance.
Right.
And that was, at the time, was like $5,000. And then the deposit on our facility
Right.
where we rent space from.
Office, some basic
Yep.
stuff. I mean, like our first,
Very basic, yeah.
very basic, basically a chair, a desk, and, which they
In a
supplied.
sh- in a sh-
Our
in a
first
shared
office
office,
was
yeah.
shared with at Signature Flight Support.
Right.
In the line guys,
Yes.
like we're like, hey, you got office space? And this is at the Des Moines airport, and they're like, they hadn't seen a flight school in a long time. We picked a good location, by the way. That's one key to the success.
Right.
But we were in an office in the back with the line guys. It was literally like where they don't want to show the public. It's like this hidden office in the corner. We had a desk share in a room. We didn't have our own room, and that's all we started with was a desk, a chair, a poster that said it was Fly KDSM at that time.
Yep.
And that's the name of the company. It's now all U.S. Flight Co. But that was branded as Fly KDSM, and that school was. So major upfront cost, you got the plane, which 15 to 20% is kind of a standard down payment. Banks are going to ask that from you. So we each put 5 to 10,000 in at the beginning, and like he said, we got the plane, so we paid the down payment on the plane. We paid for our insurance, which was $4,000 or $5,000. Then we, sorry, my dog's here too, and he's whining. But what else did we say? Oh, rent, the deposit for the rent. So getting started with the flight school, I think we were in 10 to 15 would be a safe number, right?
Yeah.
10 to 15,000 invested in the flight school, and there are other ways to do it cheaper. But if you're looking to get a one plane, one location, that's kind of what we think you're going to need to get started.
Yeah. I would say after doing the other locations, if you've got the capital, if you could start with 2 planes, it does help your image a lot. It'll help you look a lot more legitimate with customers come in. When they see one plane, they're kind of like, oh, what is this?
I think the reason why it worked out in Des Moines is, dude, there was no schools.
Yeah, there wasn't another
There
option.
was no option.
Yeah.
So another thing for success is, like Anthony said, get 2 planes or a couple combinations. Get 2 planes is always preferred, but obviously that's more capital. But another thing is pick the right location. If you go into a place where they need a flight school, one plane's enough, because that's what we did, and it worked.
It worked.
So,
yeah.
got anything else on the capital?
No. Outside of try and find a good banker. Don't just go with a big bank necessarily. If you can go with a local bank, build a relationship with the banker, it's going to help you a lot in the long run.
Yeah, because you're going to want to go back to him. That was key. Anthony established a relationship with a guy, a small town banker, and he literally got to the point where he was just no money down. We just
hey,
Anthony called him and said, hey, we need another plane, and the guy authorized us the funds to get a plane.
Yep.
And that's how we grew it to like an 8-plane fleet in like a year and a half.
Right.
And we're blue collar guys, mechanics. So like we didn't have any investment. We hustled, we grinded, and I thought that was pretty good. We were buying a plane every couple months.
Yeah, for a while there was about every 3 months we were adding another plane.
And putting 5,000-10,000 in a company. I was pleased with it. It was a lot of hard work, but all right. So let's move on, so we can not take all day on this podcast. We gotta keep moving here. So where to start one? We won't go over that because we talked about it. If you want to start one at your local airport and it's got a lot of flight schools based at it. I can tell you right now that our success when I was partnering with him on these flight schools was, if we didn't have the SEO capability that Anthony worked on, then we wouldn't be able to compete in the Kansas City, the St. Paul, Des Moines, those locations. We wouldn't have, we just got to the top spot. And so if you're going location, what I'm saying is, if you are going to, the best location is one that needs a flight school, first of all. If you are going to a place that has a lot of competition, your number one focus needs to be getting on the top of Google, ranking number 1 organically, map pack, and we can talk about that later on. That's not a time, we can do future episodes on marketing, but that's key. So if you're going to a big airport, make sure you focus big time on the internet, because I got to say that's probably what made us grow.
Yeah, I mean
they just come in like clockwork.
Yeah, that first, the first at least 6 months, I don't think we spent $1 in ads. It was all organic, Google SEO,
link building.
Link building. getting your website. So when people are searching for flight schools, they're going to find you. It's all search marketing.
Yeah, and so I mean, reading a little bit about Google and how it works, and if you're brand new to it, if you're starting, you're going to want to invest in that. So, okay, I've got a couple more things before we go into serving the customer, how to serve the customer, maintenance. You know, we started a flight school because we were one reason why we started it, and I convinced Anthony to start or partner with him on a flight school was we're both mechanics, and obviously a big cost is maintenance. Today we kind of have different opinions about it. I think about doing your own maintenance on the flight school, just because now being mechanics, we want to fix everything, we want to upgrade everything.
Right.
We are spending most of our time in the shop working on the planes, seeing people work on our planes, overseeing it. And so it's a blessing and a curse, because I think we have saved money.
Absolutely.
But at the same time, we've spent a lot of time on maintenance that we could have spent maybe opening more locations, hiring more flight schools, working on a career program earlier. He's got a career program right now for his school, but that didn't come till, heck, I was almost, I got out of the school because I was starting a family, and Anthony said, wait till you get a kid, it's really going to change your life. And he was right. So I had to take a break, and Anthony bought me out, and he's the 100% owner now. But I helped him build it, and he's still building. He took it and now is doing other things with it. But I would say that, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, coming back to the maintenance, it's definitely the biggest expense for sure. Outside of maybe.
You think it's more than fuel?
Yeah, it is definitely more than fuel.
It is.
I mean, it depends. As of right now, with ours, I mean, we're running a little bit older planes because we have that the mechanic background. We're able to buy an older plane and fix it up and make it just as competitive as a newer plane. But we're able to save a lot of costs there. So if you're buying a newer plane, it's probably similar to fuel costs. It's still probably going to be one of your biggest expenses for sure. But and it just depends on how new of a plane you get on a lot of the stuff. But with an older plane, once you put all the work into it, it's equivalent to a newer plane in my opinion. Because once you replace the parts,
each plane that we got, and we ran same make, same model. I convinced Anthony to do that.
Right.
We bought a 172 at first. And then if you look at the big flight schools, go ahead and take a look and see that they have a lot of the same plane, right? And there's a big reason for it. And you're able to exchange parts, and the training's much easier. Your processes are all the same. So we recommend going one plane across the board. Of course, like now there's TAA. That transitioned probably just before we got the school, but it used to be that you had to have a complex plane to get the commercial guys done.
Yeah.
Now you can do TAA, so we don't even never had a retract in the
never
fleet.
Needed one.
Piper Cherokees across the board bought these planes that needed work, right? Because that's what we could afford. And Anthony had an avionics background, and we tore the planes apart and upgraded them over time, and to this day he's still upgrading them. So that's the maintenance is a blessing and a curse, because
no matter what, the best thing you can do is bring the maintenance in house. Because if you're paying a shop retail, I mean, depending on the city you're in, you're paying $100, $120 an hour.
This is 2022 prices, by the way.
Yeah. So that's only going to go up as the demand for mechanics and shops goes up. But if you're paying anywhere near $100 an hour for your maintenance, it makes it pretty difficult to turn a profit pretty quick. So. Even if you're paying a subcontractor to do some maintenance, at half the price, if your airport allows that, that's a good way to go.
Which is why Phalanx was born. If you're out there and looking for mechanics, check out phalanxaviation.com. We have nationwide mobile mechanics, and that's why it was pretty much came about because we thought maybe it would support the school. And Phalanx was around before, but long story short, what Anthony's saying. I was right alongside him when we were doing the maintenance. We opened remote locations, and we didn't want to go to Kansas City. We weren't going to go to Kansas City work on the planes, and as mechanics, we didn't want to pay retail prices.
Right.
And we did pay retail, like Whip Air up in Minnesota. We pay them
for a little bit.
I don't even know. In Kansas City, we used a couple retail shops, like the Pedostatic. We had to get done retail.
We still do.
And then I think
yeah.
we may have had one or two times where we used them, but we end up finding our in-house mechanics. Like he said, we pay them half. Our mechanics are making $50 an hour, which is half of retail. So to the mechanic, we're paying the mechanics 50, and that's great money for an A&P mechanic working on piston aircraft. I mean, we get airline guys like, hey, I want to do this.
Right.
It's a great gig. It's a side gig too. We don't need maintenance all the time, so we end up getting a lot of mechanics on the roster, and we're able to call them up and have them come out and help us out. But to echo Anthony's point, if you're going to pay retail maintenance cost on your flight school, we saw slim profit margins as a school. I don't know, like, you can do it, but your rates got to be higher. You got to
Right.
be able to account for it, because there's a lot of hidden costs in the flight school world.
Yeah,
It creeps up on you.
And the cost is only one side of that. You have the downtime too. If you're going to a busy,
They're not
busy
prioritizing
shop,
you,
yeah, they're
yeah.
not going to prioritize.
Especially
you.
if you negotiate a reduced rent, because you're going to come back.
Right.
Like, there are shortage of shops, so I mean,
Yeah.
I think that's going to be pretty hard to cut the
So,
deals.
so in-house maintenance, I think that's critical to, maybe you don't have to month one like out of the gate, but that should be your priority in your first 3 months for sure.
Yep. Cool. Okay, so let's go and roll into serving the customer, because as a flight school, you got to serve the customer. I mean, if there was one thing to make your school successful, I think the biggest thing is getting in front of the customer and then serving the customer.
Sure. Yep.
Any business, I
Yeah,
don't care if
yeah,
you're running
really.
a dumpster business or a flight school, you
Yeah.
have to have customers, you have to have money coming in
Right.
the door. So let's talk about how you serve the customer and where you're going to go with that.
Yeah, so that's kind of going back to when I got my license. So I kind of touched on it earlier, but basically I was flying with this guy after I went through a few instructors, found a guy I wanted to fly with that had a lot of experience. And I was just I felt like I was wasting money though. And a lot of people have the same experience. We get students all the time coming into the school that are like, yeah, I've got 20 hours, but I haven't soloed
Right.
yet. I don't really know what I need to do. And it's because a lot of these instructors in schools, they don't have a system that they're following. They just kind of have it in their head, and they think, we're just going to go
Yeah,
fly,
right.
we're going to get you through it, but they don't have a checklist, they don't have a system, they don't know what they're doing, or what they should be focusing on. They're just kind of going out and randomly flying around.
CFIs, when they are done, to get your CFI, you have to do a simple sample lesson plan, right?
Right.
But like, I don't think there's a lot in like efficiency of teaching a student. It's more of like, I don't know. I don't have my CFI, so
Yeah,
let
it's
us know your comments. But like,
yeah, please
we've
do.
gotten a lot of CFIs that, green CFIs, 0 hours, and teaching wise, they can't teach yet. They
Right.
don't know how to teach, and I know the CFI is supposed to be like the license is a license to teach.
Right, but they don't really.
It
They,
takes them some time.
it's
It takes
bare
some
it's
time.
bare minimum on the actual teaching strategies that they require you to learn to get the CFI, unfortunately. But it's just kind of like if they just knew exactly what to do for the lesson and prepared for the lesson, it would totally change. But a lot of these 61 instructors, Part 61 is what these guys fly under. They just they think they're, I don't know if it's like an attitude thing, like we've had CFIs come in where they're like, I don't need to follow that system. I know what we're going to go do.
Right.
And it always results in the same thing. It results in these private pilots, and maybe they get their
Student suffering,
the student
ultimately.
suffers. They might get their license, but it takes them a lot longer.
Thousands more dollars later,
Yeah, $200 an hour. If it takes you another 20 hours, it's a couple $1,000s pretty quick. So that's why we've really spent a lot of time putting together a curriculum, refining it, making sure it's easy to follow, both for the instructor and the student. So that way everyone knows exactly what's expected for the lesson, what they're going to go do. And what they got to ultimately do to keep progressing towards the license. So it's all a system that they're tracking progress, knowing what to do, and moving forward.
If you're interested in that system, check out US Flight Code, because I think you're working on getting it to go nationwide, a system that a student can take to the CFI, right?
Exactly, yeah. So that's kind of the next step. I love doing the flight school, and that's but I know this problem's nationwide. So I want to help solve that issue for everybody, not just in our local markets. So I'm making a system that literally the student can buy before their first flight. They can show up. They'll show up to the instructor, and literally, if you take the system to a school and you follow the system, you're gonna have the instructors fighting over you, because they're gonna know you're serious. They're gonna know You're dedicated to the training, which is an issue. You know, a lot of students that come in, they kind of want to do it, but they're not really that serious about it.
Sure.
And the instructors kind of, you know, they don't like flying with those guys as much. So if you follow the system, the instructors are going to fight over you. You're going to be able to qualify. You're going to be able to qualify the instructor. You know, you're going to be able to ask them the right questions. No, is this guy organized? Is he serious?
How many hours does he have?
Yeah, how many pilots is he trained? Yeah, is he only going to be around for a month, or is he going to be gone? And then the last part, if I can remember here, is you're going to be able to just save a lot of money ultimately in your training, because you're going to know exactly what you have to do and where you're at in your training as you're going through it.
So yeah, the system is designed to make the student kind of take control of their future, and
Right.
that I can, you know, Anthony developed that after I left the school, but I know, like, when I was sitting there alongside him running the school, that I can't tell you how many times students came in the doors and they, you know, not it's not their problem, but they don't really know. It's their first time getting into aviation.
Right. They have no idea.
They don't know what to do. They're just going to listen. They're going to trust the CFI. And CFIs, we're not dogging CFIs. Like,
Right.
we know that they are needed, but we're addressing a problem that we've seen in our school, and we know it's nationwide. Out in Colorado, the school I worked at, same thing. You know, it was like we had students coming in. They had students coming in that just didn't. They didn't know what to do next. They didn't have a roadmap. The CFI just kind of threw it all together and they went, and that cost them hundreds, not thousands, a lot of times, dollars.
Yeah.
And so this system is going to help. It's going to make the student in charge. They're going to take charge of the future. It's going to lay out step by step what you need to have done. You bring that to the CFI. I think it's great. I think it's going to help out a lot, and I hope it's going to save some time.
And for the people that are looking at starting a flight school, it's a perfect system for them as well, because there are, you know, syllabuses out there, but to get a CFI to follow any of the, you know, the syllabuses out there is really difficult, because they make them so complicated. You got this 10 pages on how to there's a huge manual on how to do it, and then you have this complex grading system where you got a 1 through 10 on each task, and the CFIs don't want to do that. They're just not going to do that.
There's a reason why the biggest school in the world doesn't. I'm not going to drop that name, but up to you to figure out the biggest school. Flight school in the world is kind of got a pretty
very similar
61 structure.
Check
little loose.
Check the list.
Check the list.
Yeah.
Don't get too crazy with it.
Right.
Let's make sure we meet the standards and move on. And we're not, there's many ways to teach. But we're telling you from a flight school operator standpoint, you know, we've seen thousands of hours come through our school, flight time, tons of pilots coming out of our school, and we've seen, we're AMPs, IAs, pilots, we're not CFIs, but we can tell you that we've seen data, and we've got a lot of data from going through our school to show that if the student comes prepared, they're going to win. They're going to save time.
Right.
I think that system's going to be cool. So that's
we've had students literally.
You can tell right away when the student comes in. I mean,
yes. No, you're fine. Yeah.
Right when the student comes in, you know, you can tell if they're going to get their license on time or not, because the ones who educate themselves first.
Right. Take that initiative.
Yeah. They know where to get the medical. They maybe they have their medical.
Right.
They know what IACRA is. They know like how many hours they need. The standard and they have the money saved up. You know, they just know. And then you got the guys who, like, it's like they were on their couch surfing the web, and they're like, oh, I want to take a discovery flight. They come out, do a discovery flight, and nothing against that, but then those are the guys that, I want to do it, but there's no planning, and they end up taking 60, 70, 80, 100 hours to get their private.
Several years.
$20,000 in, $30,000 in. I don't know. I can't tell you who the highest time guy was, but
it's.
I think I know of a guy who took over 100 hours, but he was stopping older guy in the first flight school that I had. I think it was Ron. You remember Ron?
He was flying with not any one of our schools. He was flying with
it was kind of something that we saw.
Bill, but I think he was like 150 or 170 hours, and he just wasn't focused on it. That was his issue.
And we're not dogging anybody. We're just telling you what we saw and trying to help it. So anything else on serving the customer? I mean, that's his school.
Yeah, so as the school, you got to have a system. It's got to be easy to follow. The simpler it is, the better. But it's still got to make sure that the people are doing what they're supposed to do. And That's the, as long as you've got a system in place that helps that customer get from point A to point B, then you're gonna be doing a lot better than most schools out there, rather than just having
Yeah.
people come in and go fly and waste money. So
Right. And if you're looking for a turnkey system, check US Flight Co out. I mean,
Yeah.
he's got it online there. It's gonna help you out. So it'd be a good thing to look into if you're confused on where to start. But yeah, I mean, like I always say at Phalanx, and with anything that I worked on, is like the customer experience is key to anything. And to get money in the door for your company, you got to provide value. And so a system like Anthony's can help make the student have a good experience ultimately. Not only save the time, but just for me, when I got my pilot's license, I can tell you that I wanted it so bad that I made my own little system
sure, yeah,
and just had my own. I took 61 out, made a checklist, FAR 61, literally copied it on a piece of paper and had little check boxes.
yeah,
And
yeah.
every time I flew, I tallied up my hours, and so okay, I can check that box off, and just that's how structured it was for me. And
Right, and that's what when I was going through my pilot training, I was so frustrated. That was my turning point when I did that same thing. I figured out what are the requirements, and I said, okay, this is what I've got to do, and I started focusing on it, and then all of a sudden,
started clicking.
yeah, a month or two later, I had my license.
Right.
I just started knocking it out.
And before we even go any further, 41 and 61, he runs a 61 school, or 141 versus 61. We both got our licenses under the 61 program.
Yep.
And what we're talking about is there's FARs, and some of you know this, but for those of you that don't, the regulation we're talking about is 61 is FAR 61 are the rules that lay out what it takes to get your private pilot's license, right? And all licenses if you're doing it under 61. And in there they have, hey, you need 40 hours total time, long cross country, you need to do 3 landings at a towered airport without an instructor. It just tells you very defined what you need to do to get your pilot's license. So in his system, he's got that checklist right out of the 61 in there, so makes it simple, makes it easy.
Yep, and there's just adding on that a little bit. We've also got another checklist too. So there's another part of 61 there's aeronautical experience, and then there's the knowledge, what I call aeronautical knowledge part. And in there we have a double check system where both the student and the instructor have to sign off saying that, the instructor's saying that, hey, we taught this knowledge to you. And then you as a student would sign off, or your student in this case would sign off saying, yes, I've learned this and I'm comfortable with it, because that was another problem I faced when I did finally get my license. I lacked a lot of the knowledge side of it, so I wasn't super confident and comfortable actually using my license and going places. So it's kind of 2 big problems we're trying to tackle with one system.
Cool. Yeah. Well, so serving the customer, we'll kind of wrap that up by just if you're starting a flight school, make sure you are serving your customer. If they don't get their license, then that's their mission. They're coming the doors trying to get their license.
Right.
So support that.
Yep.
Think of them. Adopt a system like Anthony's that is very simple, easy to follow. Kind of the student can take control, and if you do that, your chances of success are much higher. Because if you're in it for yourself, if it's pretty evident when an instructor is in it kind of for themselves, like
Just trying to build time
doesn't make time for the student. The pre and post flight briefings are short, and that's the and we'll get over this topic, but I keep thinking of things in the school, and I'm just like,
it's a big topic.
I'm realizing that it's not, and I never blame anybody because I'm not in the situation, but we've seen it, and so the CFI, he needs to build time, and that's his mission, to build time. Most guys aren't in the CFI slot to. Some guys are doing it part-time for fun, but most guys are doing it to build time. And if they're building time, they want the hours in the seat. They don't want to talk to you as much. A lot of guys are this way.
Right.
Not everybody, but you'll find this a lot. So if you feel like your CFI is rushing you or doesn't have time for you, you're going to a big school, then another, like a system like Anthony's, a similar one where you take control as the student it's gonna save you a lot of time and money. So create value for your students. Offer a simple system to follow. Let's see. I got on here best parts, worst parts. Let's finish with that.
Oh man,
This is running a flight school. Best parts, worst parts.
Best parts. For me, the best parts are when I see students succeed. When I see a student pass a check ride, first solos. Most of the instructors send me a picture when a student solos, that kind of thing. And no matter where I am, I see that picture, and it's awesome. It's an incredible feeling.
Producing pilots.
Yeah, I'm playing a
in the
really small
industry.
part in it, but it's super rewarding for me. So that's
And I'm
definitely
sure
the
that,
best part.
like, out of the, how many flight schools are there? A couple thousand?
Yeah, I should know that
There's
number.
not that many
Yeah,
flight
there's not a
schools.
lot.
And so everyone does a little part to help in, like, right
Right.
now, I mean,
Right.
pilot shortage is so it's
Oh, it's crazy. Yeah.
And same
Yeah.
with mechanics. It's like, so I mean, small schools like US Flight Co are just helping contribute to that. So
Yeah.
that was the best part.
Yeah.
What's the worst part?
Worst part, employees, right? And there was an entrepreneur that we both actually served. He told me, oh, my grandpa always said when I started that employees are going to be your biggest headaches, and they are. And you can't do it without the employees. So I'm super grateful for the guys that help out and everything. So I'm not dogging them on that way,
Yeah.
but trying to keep people on track, make sure people are following the processes because we're humans.
Right.
They get off track. They start kind of developing their own ways of doing things. And a lot of times as an entrepreneur business owner, that ends up costing you money if you're not keeping tabs on
In the
it.
flight
So
school world, I mean, like, the margins are tight. I say the margins are 5-10% at best, and
Right.
so, like, with tight margins on stuff like that, every little bit, an employee kind of wasting, burning the clock, it really hurts the school. And
It does.
so, like, I can, when I was with you, even in the shop having employees, it's, some people do good working with people and some people don't. I mean, like, I didn't mind having employees until it like burned up the finances.
yeah, exactly.
They're necessary. You need them.
We had one guy that there was a student having a check ride, and it was in another city where the pilot examiner was. So the instructor thought he could ferry the plane
Oh,
for the
okay,
student to
know
go
this.
to his check ride and not charge the student for it. And he,
Yeah,
you
so
know,
flying the plane.
and it was like
company's time.
it was like an hour flight there and back, and it was like, you got the gas, you got the maintenance and everything on that. So it's like, no, we can't just
Yeah,
move
that's
planes
not-
around for free. It's just little stuff like that. It's just randomly it pops up. People get a wild idea, and
And I gotta be honest
yeah.
with you, any business is gonna have.
Right.
It's not like getting. I think a lot of people think that getting in business means that you're gonna be your own boss. You're gonna have this glorious life, and
Right, yeah.
that does come. I think if you do it right.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
gotta work hard at it, but like there's a lot of things you gotta work hard at, and one of them, if you want to build a big company and have employees, you gotta work with the people.
yep,
And so, like, I could say, the worst part, working with people is good, and some days it's not. So it's funny that you said that it's the employees because
Yeah. it's
I
a
know you need them, and I
yeah,
know
it's a
you
critical
like
part.
them, but like it
Absolutely.
does suck when things aren't on the tracks and people
Right.
are all deviating from the plan.
right, and ultimately it's all worth it in the end. The freedom you get,
Yeah.
when you can take a day off and come shoot a podcast with your
Well,
friends,
here's-
it's
yeah.
like it's all right.
Yeah, here's the thing that gets me. It's
So-
like, all right, I sit there and think about, all right, and this is just me. I'm addicted to entrepreneurship. Not everybody is, but like once I got into it, and same with Anthony. He said he was doing hustles his whole time,
Right,
whole
yeah.
life, and I don't know what turned for me when I wanted to become an entrepreneur in aviation, but when it did, it's like. Even when I fail, it sucks. It sucks big time.
It
I
does,
still
yeah.
know, like, at the bottom of my heart, I'm just like, this is where I need to be.
Yep.
So I think it's one of those things that starting a company, you just kind of got to get in there. You got to do it. You're going to fail. It's going to happen. If you can make and I talked about this in one of the earlier podcasts. My first podcast was doing what you love for an income. And I still think
Yes.
to this day that if you can make $50,000 a year doing what you love, that's better than making $1 million doing what you hate. And some people may argue that, but like at the end of the day, waking up and going and doing something that you love is worth so much.
It is.
It's
Yeah.
worth so much freaking money.
Yeah.
And I always say, like, find what you love and then make the money afterwards.
Yeah.
And that's
Yep,
kind of our
absolutely.
journey, that's what we've
Yep.
done. And I'm not dissatisfied. I mean, everything I've got today is from aviation and
Right.
doing that. So I'm happy with it. And we're young, so we
You got time. Yeah, I mean it's absolutely true. I mean every day I'm at the airport and You know, I'm walking out on the ramp and there's citation jets and Gulf Streams and everything all around. You know, and it's just like you just
cool
know.
environment.
You know, I just know it's where I need to be, where I'm supposed to be. You know, and I just love it.
It's
Yeah.
pretty cool.
Yeah.
Okay, so with that, let's just. You got anything else? You got any other thing you want to talk about?
It's
Starting flight schools. That's the topic.
starting flight schools. Do it.
Do it.
We need more. We need more pilots. You know,
We do
there is
need more
there is a real
pilots.
pilot shortage, and we need the guys that are willing to put everything on the line to help solve the issue. And
Yeah, and if you're thinking about if you're a student and you stumbled by this podcast, check out US Flight Co. If you're thinking about starting a flight school, check out US Flight Co. They've got a lot of good resources on how to start a flight school and helping students out ultimately. You know, like so. And drop us a line, you know.
Absolutely.
We want to hear. This is a newer podcast, but we're trying to be entrepreneurs in aviation, and I think there's not a lot of that. I talked about like how aviation is a small niche as it is, and then you talk about entrepreneurship or business owners in aviation, and that's a super small family. So like, this probably won't be a big blow up channel. I'm not expecting it to be,
right.
but like if we can get people that are in the same boat, wanting to start a company in aviation, then let us know. Like, leave a comment, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. Let's keep the channel going. And if you know, if you're an entrepreneur out there and you want to come on the show, let us know, because we can do either a virtual, or maybe we come down there and to your location and set up, or you come up here and set up with us, and we'll just interview you and talk about aviation entrepreneurship. So. With that, hey, thanks for coming on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
To do this. This
Yeah.
is we tried doing this down at the shop.
Right.
It didn't work. It was just like people everywhere. So
Yeah,
like
in and out, and yeah.
Yeah, this is much better.
Yep.
So thanks for stopping by, and we'll see you guys next time on the Grease Pilot Show.